Imagine a quiet night in 1952, a small town in the shadowy depths of the Appalachian Mountains. Three boys playing football under the stars as they enjoy their years of youth, until they are witness to a bright light shooting across the sky that grips them with fear and uncertainty in already worrying times. They do not realize that an otherworldly entity has decided to visit their quiet rural home, and their encounter with it will send shockwaves through the community, leaving a mark on the pages of paranormal history. It's time to explore the terrifying encounter with the Flatwoods Monster. Hello everyone, and welcome to Wicked Encounters, where we explore just what goes bump in the night. I'm your host Allie, and today we're going to cover the Flatwoods Monster. The Flatwoods Monster, also known as the Braxton County Monster, Frametown Monster, or Braxy, is a cryptid that was first sighted in the forests of Flatwoods, West Virginia. The sighting occurred at 7:15 p.m. on September 12, 1952, when three boys, brothers Edward and Fred May, and their friend Tommy Heyer, were playing football and witnessed a bright object shoot across the sky, coming to rest on a local farm. The boys quickly ran back to the Mays' home, where they grabbed mother Kathleen May, who gathered three men and a dog to join the group in seeing what exactly was going on. As they climbed a hill leading to the farm, the dog ran ahead, barking incessantly until it disappeared on the other side of the hill. Shortly after, the dog returned, running as fast as its legs could carry it, with its tail tucked between its legs in fear. Now for me, that would be enough to turn around and maybe call the cops or the farmer to say they got something going on over there. But this group was determined, and continued to the top of the hill, where one of the men saw a red light pulsing through some ominous mist. Past an open field lay a wooded area, where the pulsing light continued to emanate from. Gene Lemon, one of the men who joined the group, was a National Guardsman who looked to the trees where he spotted glowing eyes peering down at the group. Believed to be extraterrestrial in nature, the group saw a creature that stood 10 feet tall and 4 feet wide as a mechanical machination, or it was in a robotic suit or some type of spacecraft. It possessed a cowl in the shape of an ace of spades behind a blood-red, round head with two large eyes that were described as portholes that glowed a greenish-orange. Clawed hands attached to the body whose coloration varies depending on who you ask, with some claiming it was black, others green, and others still a metallic silver. Lower from the chest piece, the being looked to be wearing a dark metal dress. When the creature noticed the group, it glided towards them, making a hissing sound, which caused Mrs. May and the boys to flee the area. For the next few days, it was said the group suffered from throat irritation, vomiting, and nausea that persisted for days after their encounter. The group had contacted the police to report what they had seen in the wooded area, and when investigators went to the farm to find out what exactly scared the group so badly, they found nothing amiss. Local newspapers wrote about the event at the time, saying that state police laughed off the reports as hysteria. If this was a one-and-done scenario, then that would have been that. But the September 12th sighting wasn't the only recorded instance of the Flatwoods Monster. According to the official website of Braxton County, West Virginia, there were actually multiple encounters with the creature, and residents of the area. One even before the September 12th sighting. A local woman named Audra Harper had been walking through the woods with some friends when they saw a fire over on a hill. In rural areas, it's not uncommon to see farmers light fires to burn trash or debris from their fields, so the group thought nothing of it as they continued on their walk. Though for Harper, something seemed a bit off. She turned her head to steal one last glance of the blaze, where in its stead she saw a dark silhouette of an eerily tall man. She minded her own business after that. A day after the Mays and the other boys had their encounter with the Flatwoods Monster, a young couple, George and Edith Snitowski, were driving on a road 20 miles south of Flatwoods where their car broke down in the evening. The couple had their 18-month-old son with them, so they were desperate to get their car back on the road as soon as possible as darkness began to fall. Though how they were able to do it could have been less alarming for them. As they worked on getting the car working, they suddenly smelled sulfur as a bright light filled the sky. Looking up, they witnessed a 10-foot-tall monster hovering in front of them with clawed hands and a reptilian head. Alarmed at the terrifying sight before them, they watched as the creature came closer before it extended a clawed hand with a little boop before drifting off into the woods nearby. And just like that, the Snatowski's car started once more. Now, while being a bit different because, reptilian-faced beastie, this creature is believed to be the same creature as the Flatwoods Monster, though it was given its own name, the Frametown Monster. Each of these witnesses went to the police and news outlets, though none of the stories spread as quickly as the sighting on September 12th, which was making headlines across the country. The local police almost immediately dismissed the story of the Flatwoods Monster as hysteria, but other people weren't so sure. One newspaper publisher, A. Lee Stewart, spoke with Mrs. May and the boys, saying they were the most scared people he'd ever seen. Mrs. May and Gene Lemon, the National Guardsman, were actually invited to New York to talk about their experience on CBS, which helped spread the story much faster, but also got the attention of the U.S. Air Force. The Air Force went on to conduct their own investigation of what exactly the group had seen that night. Their conclusion? Same as the police. Well, similar at least. They provided more of an explanation as to what they think the group saw that night. The Air Force determined that the streak the boys saw during their football game was a meteor that had been observed in Maryland and Pennsylvania at the very same time. The monster with glowing eyes and claws? They said it was most likely an owl, reacting to being startled by the group. Typically, it would take more than just some newspapers and a talk show to grab the Air Force's attention. But this was 1952, which was during the wonderful period of time we in America know as the Cold War. And not just any part of it, but that wonderful 14-year period where there were blatant open hostility and escalation between everyone. You see, 3 years before the sighting, the Soviet Union had just successfully tested an atomic bomb. With threats of war, sightings of UFOs, conspiracy theories left, right, and center, and World War II having only ended about 7 years ago, it was an era of bomb scares and terror, where everyone was terrified their neighbor was a communist spy. Or worse, a government one. The Air Force was constantly scanning for bombers in the sky. They took mostly all sightings seriously, which is also probably why aliens and UFOs seem to really start popping off. One writer from the area took it a little too seriously, perhaps. Gray Barker, a writer and Braxton County native, investigated the monster himself and became one of the most prominent UFO mythmakers ever. Born to a family where only 2 members graduated high school, and being the only one of them to graduate college, it was clear Barker had his own set of ambitions. He wrote about the Flatwoods Monster and actually created the government myth of the Men in Black after hearing that 2 Air Force investigators supposedly showed up posing as magazine writers. He collected stories about the Flatwoods Monster and submitted an article about it to Fate magazine before writing regular pieces about UFOs for Space Reviews. Once that magazine, created by Albert K. Bender, abruptly ended, with Bender stating he was ordered to from, quote, higher sources, he and Barker wrote their first book, titled They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers, that began the idea of Men in Black and work around the Flatwoods Monster. He then began his own series, called Saucerian Books, with the first one being about the Flatwoods Monster. Later on, it was revealed that despite the mythos Barker created for ufology and Men in Black and all, he didn't believe any of it, and simply used his books as cash grabs, which is pretty disappointing, but not unexpected, sadly. Granted, all of this didn't stop Flatwood from celebrating their new local celebrity. Officials in Flatwood embraced their new cryptid that joined the ranks of Mothman, the Snallygaster, and Batboy. Yes, I will be covering that special little delight one day. A welcome sign was created which designates the town as home of the Green Monster, and even holds an annual Flatwoods Day festival. There's even a Flatwoods Monster museum in the town of Sutton, the Braxton County seat, dedicated to the cryptid that quite a few content creators have their merch sold at, and it has a pretty good social media presence on its own on Instagram, which you should check out just to get a vibe for it. It's rather interesting because originally the entire museum was supposed to just have one small shelf dedicated to Flatwoods Monster paraphernalia, and instead it became the entire museum. Now granted, the museum is just one large room, but the care and enthusiasm the town has towards their cryptid is admirable. Maybe not to the levels of the Hodag, but pretty close, with the entrance having a life-sized costume of the Flatwoods Monster. The walls are lined with tall shelves with drawings, figurines, lanterns, stickers, t-shirts, and video games, all showing different interpretations of the beastie, with many being donated by artists and collectors. You can also check out the Braxton County Convention and Visitors Bureau, where they built a series of 5 tall chairs in the shape of the monster, where, if you photograph all 5 of them, you get a free Braxy sticker, which is pretty neat. I don't mind getting a free sticker for something as simple as photographing some neat made furniture. The Flatwoods Monster is one of the more popular cryptids in North America, having been referenced in songs, documentaries, and video games like Fallout 76. Its sighting occurred during a time when the United States were on eggshells, and aliens and UFOs were hot news, helping its sighting spread like a spread like fleas on a dog. Sure, let's go with that. Many ufologists don't necessarily believe the tale, but they look back on it fondly as a story that means that there is a likelihood that we are not alone in the universe. The May brothers are very familiar with this idea of cosmic loneliness. They're still alive to this day in their late 70s, though they are no longer talking to reporters. You can only tell your tale so many times, and after hundreds of thousands of interviews, literally, I feel these gentlemen deserve to relax a bit. They did appear in a recent documentary by Small Town Monsters called The Flatwoods Monster: A Legacy of Fear, where Fred stated that it doesn't matter to him whether people believe or not believe. And honestly, good on him. Told a story and left it at that. But what do you think? Do you believe in the Flatwoods Monster? Have you seen the Flatwoods Monster Museum in Braxton County? How do you feel about aliens and UFOs in general? I personally love learning about our potential galactic neighbors, and always read or watch or play anything related to them. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. I read them all and appreciate all the support I've gotten from you lovely folks. If you want to see what I release in the future, consider subscribing, liking this video, and sharing it with others who like spooky stuff, so YouTube will stop keeping me in algorithm hell. Yes, I'm still there. Please help. If you'd like to support me in other ways, consider checking out my Patreon or maybe joining my Discord, where we can chat about potential topics to be covered or spookies in general. Many of my videos are thanks to suggestions I've gotten, so feel free to let me know what you'd like to see covered next. With that, I'm Allie, this is Wicked Encounters, and I'll see you next time. Bye!